It's time for Pure Performance.
Get your stopwatches ready. It's time for Pure Performance with Andi Grabner and Brian Wilson. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Pure Performance. My name is Brian Wilson. And as always, or as sometimes I should say today, I have with me today's guest, Andi Grabner. Andi, as guest, how are you doing today?
I'm very good. I'm just trying to figure out if, as a guest, I have to play a different role in here now, or do I also need to deal with your bad jokes or strange dreams, or do you then, I don't know, you just introduced me. I don't know.
Yeah, well, this has been fantastic so far. I can tell you that. As a guest, you're failing terribly. Most of our guests do a lot better in the beginning than that. So, I mean, you have been a guest before, and what people usually know about when you are a guest, it's because you've done some traveling and seen and heard some awesome things in the real world. So recently you were just at KubeCon, right? Mm-hmm. You were at one of our new favorite topics, this platform engineering. Was that a convention you were at, or?
No, I was doing a workshop tour, and I'm actually still in my tour as of the recording. So I did 4 cities on the West Coast. Actually, I'll make it all the way to Denver, right? I was supposed to meet you in Denver, but then unfortunately you couldn't do it. But so a lot of platform engineering discussions we had lately with our community. Then KubeCon, and next week I'm heading to Texas for an additional continuation of the topic. And then the week after, I finish my trip in Hungary, in Budapest. Having, again, platform engineering as a topic, as a keynote topic at a financial conference. So like conference for the financial sector, talking about platform engineering, yeah.
And then you get to go home?
I think so. Yeah, no, it's all good. You know, I'm doing this because I like it. And it's seriously, it's really interesting. And what's really interesting is that the term platform engineering, while we live a little bit in our bubble, mm-hmm. and maybe people say, well, I know what you mean with platform engineering, but others have no clue. But then if you explain it and say, of course, but we just call it something different. But I think the concept of platform engineering, of reducing the complexity of the underlying infrastructure to help developers to onboard new applications, push things out into production, get the data that they need in a more self-service way, mm-hmm. is basically what everybody agrees on, that this is what organizations are currently building, and different people use different tools for that. They run on different technology stacks. Most of the people that I talk to have chosen Kubernetes as their underlying platform. And mm-hmm. then on top of Kubernetes, they then provide use cases to make it easier for developers to get things out, and then they choose the right tools that get the job done.
All right. Well, let me ask you 2 questions, and I'm going to do an Andi Grabner here and ask you 2 questions at once, and then you're going to have to remember them both to answer. Yeah. So question number 1 would be, what are some of the other terms that people are using for platform engineering, or conceptual ways of explaining it? But if there are other terms, it would be good to know, so that if we hear it, we know what it is. And obviously with Kubernetes as the platform, what are some of the, obviously we know we would highly suggest observability, but what are some of the other tools that are involved in platform engineering? So first, what are the other names for it, and what tools do we see in the ecosystem for platform engineering?
Yeah. Cool. I think I can remember both questions. So let me answer the first one. It's ranging from platform engineering to foundational engineering to DevOps engineering to just doing cloud engineering, cloud architecture. So these are some of the things that I hear out there. And the reason why platform engineering might also be a little bit misleading or like a little strange for some, because a lot of software companies, also like we as Dynatrace, right? We're building a platform. We're building an observability platform, and people build apps on top of our platform. So now if I talk about platform engineering, also internally, this could be misleading, because, well, what are you talking about? Are you talking about the product, and we talk typically about an IDP, an internal development platform, or an internal development. Yeah, I think platform is still the best term here. That is an internal set of tools to allow developer actually to get their stuff out. And I think IDP It's actually a good term to be used. Internal development platform.
Yeah.
The players, or let's say the tools, obviously different sets of tools for different capabilities that such a platform needs to have. We saw, at least at KubeCon here, a lot of vendors are hooked up on Argo. And Argo seems to be, at least on the continuous delivery, on the GitHub side, Argo CD, they make the most noise, at least. And a lot of
what
organizations.
Are they like a pipeline tool or like a CD you're talking about? Or so,
yeah. Argo CD, I think, is the leading GitOps delivery tool where you point Argo CD to a Git repository, and the Git repository basically holds your desired state. So the Git repository holds all of your Kubernetes configuration, all of your deployments, your ingresses, all of it. And then Argo is then using this and making sure that these changes get applied to Kubernetes, so that the desired state that you have specified in your Git becomes the actual running state in Kubernetes. And the way it works, Argo and Flux is another tool that comes to mind. All of these tools have basically an operator approach where they basically continuously reconcile and making sure that the desired state in Git is the same as in Kubernetes. And that's the kind of the idea. So we see Argo a lot. And what was just an observation, there were several new vendors that just use Argo underneath and then on top build some additional capabilities like multi-cluster support for Argo, management components on top, some dashboarding, some observability, security baked in. And that's what I saw. So that's Argo for delivery, I would say. That's a big point. Then other tools that people we need to put into their platform is kind of like a user interface for the developers on top, and that's where Backstage comes in as a product from Spotify. Right, Spotify is open sourced Backstage, and it's kind of like a in the end, it's really simple. It is a service catalog that shows you as a developer what is out there in my organization, what services do we have, how are they connected. It also provides a templating engine where you as an organization can say to my developers, I want to make it easy for them to build a new Java app and get it deployed on a cluster. So you can provide a template and you click that template and then it automatically creates for you the Git repository with all of the boilerplating, with all of the template, with all of the scaffolding, so that as a developer, you only need to put in your code. And then the pipeline comes with the template, all of the observability configuration, all of the security configuration, all this comes with it. So Backstage is one of the tools, but there's so many other vendors that I've seen. Port was another one. There was Deftron I talked to. There was just like a ton of tools that are kind of trying to provide that user interface into that product, what the internal development platform really is, because you're building a product, an internal product that enables developers to get things done in an easier way. And but Backstage is just fresh on my mind because Wolfgang Gottesheim and I, who both work at Dynatrace, we had a talk at Backstage Con, which was one of the co-located events at KubeCon on Monday. And we talked about how we as Dynatrace internally adopting Backstage. So that was a good interesting thing. What else? Observability is a big topic, as always, and has always been.
Are there any specific, obviously there needs to be some sort of a pipeline tool running in all that. Are there any, we know Jenkins used to be a big favorite of everybody's. Is Jenkins still primary one, or are there anybody else starting to show up in?
No, there's many. I would say so Argo, what I mentioned earlier, and Flux, and these are all kind of like GitOps deployment tools to deploy it. But the CI part, still Jenkins quite a bit, and I think they also just announced that they are now having a SaaS offering, if I'm not mistaken, on Jenkins X. Yeah, but then there's like the GitLabs of the world, the GitHubs of the world. There's some other tools. Harness comes to mind. There's a commercial vendor. There's just like a lot of tools that also grow into both directions, CI and CD, and more they are adding additional capabilities like feature flagging management and just rolling out software in a modern way. And So it's a very it's an exploding market almost, because there's so many new tools coming up all the time, and it's a little overwhelming also if you walk through the expo area, and it's like some of them it's really hard to differentiate. Why would I pick you or the 5 others that have the same message?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's always the problem. Right? It's such a, it's funny because as you're describing this expo, it reminds me of, obviously I do a lot of stuff with music and junk, and there's actually one in Germany that happens yearly. I forget the name of it, but there's a lot of these like synthesizer conventions, and people bring their new gear and their new just experimental things out, and a lot of people go and record bits of it. And you get to see a lot of new groundbreaking ideas, new concepts coming in. So thinking in terms of, Kubernetes obviously has been around, oddly enough, we can say for quite a while now, right? Mm-hmm. We're getting old. Did you see anything, obviously there's new tooling, but in terms of approaches or new concepts and ideas around the Kubernetes platform, and there I'm using the word platform in a funny way, right? Have you seen anything new where you were like, oh, that's something new and cool that people are starting to do and explore? Or is it just modifications on the existing?
I would say I had the chance, two things. I had the chance to see Kelsey Hightower, mm-hmm. because he was giving a talk at one of the booths, and he did a book signing. And he was asked the same question. He was asked kind of like, do you see new workloads or like new use cases being implemented? And he said, because he was talking at the database booth, like that were selling the storage systems, and he was saying, what the important piece is that, like, databases, right? You may not think about a database as being perfectly suited to run on a Kubernetes cluster. That's true, but if you are actually making a step towards Kubernetes and figure out what is the benefit of running a service on Kubernetes, because you have the reconciliation loops, you have the capability to declare what you want as a COD, as a Kubernetes, as a custom resource definition. And he gives some examples of storage systems that, instead of trying to just lift and shift the database into the cluster, they actually walk towards Kubernetes and basically said, okay, what do we need to change from the architecture to really fully benefit from the core principles of Kubernetes, right? Mm-hmm. The reconciliation loops, the scaling, and that's why I think we may see some additional use case where I think, well, this would never make sense on Kubernetes. On the other side, he also said, well, everything has to be on Kubernetes, right? That's a very clear point as well. The other interesting thing, and I love this analogy where he said, every 10 years we kind of have this like kind of like a reset of technology skills that you need. Because if you say, hey, I have 20 years of experience in networking, but you never heard about Kubernetes, then it's about time to probably, relearn. And he said, like, every 10 years we kind of need to reset and relearn. And then he gave some really interesting advice. And he says, hey, if you're an operator, right, and you have your bash script created that you created because people were always asking for the same thing. So you started to create a bash script, and then maybe you gave developer a chance to ping you on Slack, or maybe create a ticket, and then you called the bash script to be a little bit more efficient. Take this bash script in Kubernetes, put it into an operator, and hook it up with a COD, because what that all of a sudden does, if you think about maybe creating a new database instance, if you have a bash script for that, well, you can put this into an operator, and you can say, I now give my developers the chance to just create a COD that might be called my custom database instance with some parameters, the name, the size, and then it would basically trigger the same bash script in an operator. So I think that was actually a really interesting thing. He said, just try to think what you know already about how to solve certain problems, and then actually leverage the core principles of Kubernetes, where you can write an operator that is there to listen for the desired state, and then do whatever it takes to bring that desired state to life. And he was really that was really, really interesting. Because we talk a lot about day two operations, even, right, where you are automating things that you want to execute in case things go wrong. So you can take your knowledge and put it into an operator, and it's super simple to write an operator, even though you don't have any coding skills. So that was really, 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 really interesting. Yeah.
Go on.
No, because I have another topic. But if you have
I
something
was just
else.
going to talk about the database one, right? Because that got me thinking that, database is hardly ever touched, right? We had some NoSQL many years ago at this point, right? We had concepts like Couchbase and Hadoop and some of those components going on. But as you say, when it comes to database, yes, a lot of the cloud providers offer a cloud version of a database, but it's still this monolithic piece. But the idea of a cloud native database where it's scalable, deployed, maybe even because that's the hardest nut to crack, it seems, right? Because it's so centralized, you can't have locks going on, you can't have the duplicate data, or you don't really, it'll be really interesting to see if something more comes with that instead of just lifting and shifting. If there is this concept of a cloud native type of database that can really operate in the same way as the microservices that get sent up. I just love to see what comes of that. It's where we see the least innovation, right? But I think it's purposeful because it's hard to innovate that, right? Because it's like the anchor, it's the core of everything. Like, so how do you mess with that? So it will be interesting to see maybe if some mold gets broken on database. With that push.
I'm not sure if I agree with you when you say then there's no innovation, because I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I'm not actively looking into that field. That's why I cannot confirm nor deny what you just said. It looks like it from the outside, maybe. Anyway,
if there is, it's underground. You know what I mean? Like, people and my stupid musical thing, right? People might talk about how the Beatles like broke new ground with all this stuff. There was crazy stuff going on in the underground. It just wasn't on commercial radio. So yes, the Beatles brought it to the popularity or to the people, but there is hopefully stuff. It would be just cool to see when it bubbles up to. So laymen like you and I who don't see the database all the time go, wow. All right, you said you had another topic that you wanted to bring in.
Yeah, because on the keynotes that they did at KubeCon, one big topic was environmental impact, carbon impact, or like efficiency, right? In the end, it was really about efficiency, and there were some really interesting statements being made that obviously there was several thousand people here at KubeCon, many more virtual, and kind of saying, hey, we are the ones that are building these new platforms, that are building this new software that runs on Kubernetes, and thinking about everything that happens in AI and the amount of compute it needs. We need to make smart decisions with every code line that we write, with every configuration, with every operator, because we will have a major impact on the energy consumption worldwide that our data centers need to run in order to support our workloads. So there was a big emphasis on efficiency, on green engineering, and that was really good. They mentioned Kepler as one of the projects, which I've got to know a while ago because Henrik pointed me to it. And then, if you remember the latest podcast we had with on green engineering, it was also Kepler. It was a very popular product there, and Cube Green and others. So I think the message was very loud and clear that we need to be very careful with our resources. We need to optimize. We need to think about what we do. Because if you build something that then completely takes off in the cloud native world and everybody's using it, but it was inefficient from the start, then it will have a big impact. So you need to think about the efficiency aspect.
Yeah, and that's a really good point because and I don't bring this up to bash Cloud Foundry in any way because I'm not taking that point. But with platform engineering, I always make the call back to Cloud Foundry of like they had. There was that concept there in some respects, and now we're all moving back to it. But if I recall, you needed like something like between like 10 or 20 servers, I forget the exact number, but just to run that core of it, right? Just before you even have an application set up. So if these things that we're creating and coming up with require a ton of compute just to even be up and running to serve it, we could look at, blockchain. Right. And the big problem with Bitcoin mining and how much compute is needed that people have all these server farms. And it's the disaster of that. We don't want to turn our efficiencies or the cool things we're doing in the compute world into these disasters. So I think it's really cool that the community is getting out ahead of that. And I'd love to see we, as I think I joked the last podcast, we'll know it's taking on or it's catching on when we see that in the North American market. Obviously, who were we talking with last time? It was they were talking about the data centers up in Northern Europe with a lot of the solar power, right? And swapping around. So hopefully that continues that trend. It's a really good trend to see happening. Because we spend so much time on compute. It's just, and even if you think about it, right? Not to go off, but like, even if you think about not even just running this stuff, but charging the phones that we use to interact with it, right? It's just, nonstop. So
massive,
we have to figure out a way to clean that up. Anyhow.
And so that was a big topic. And then obviously, the topic that makes a lot of sense for us is the whole observability topic. Open telemetry is, I think they just released, like, officially went GA with version, it's now GA version 1, and
really?
supporting metrics, logs, and traces. And a lot of vendors, I'm always surprised to still see new vendors coming in that space, even though I thought, that space is now overcrowded anyway, but there's always room for new ideas. And so that's going to be interesting to see how that evolves. This time was a little bit less as compared to Amsterdam. At least my perception, maybe I'm seeing this wrong, but eBPF was a much bigger topic in Europe, I thought, than it was here. At least I didn't see it that much. Yes, we saw it with some vendors on the observability and security space, but it was not as prominent, I thought, as half a year ago.
Is that because it's not being, do you feel like, is it just becoming part of tool sets, or is it not, if it's becoming more common, it might not be talked about as much. So are we seeing eBPF being baked into a lot more tools just naturally, so it's not being considered or talked about as much, or do you think it's just not being used as much from, this is your perspective? My
perspective is probably more the first thing you said. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's probably it's there, but maybe people don't make such a marketing fuss about it anymore because people don't know what eBPF is, maybe. And but that's again my perception, and as we said in the past, we all live in a little bubble. So there was the bubble that I interacted with. So but what I am really excited about, and I'm here in Chicago, it's the end of KubeCon, and I will be jumping on a plane to go to Texas and doing another tour, visiting our community, our Dynatrace community, and giving them some insights on platform engineering in the context of observability. So looking forward to that, meeting more people in the South. And
Where in Texas are you going to
be? Houston and Dallas.
Okay.
Exactly.
I've only been in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and Austin, but never Houston.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I'm looking very much forward to that trip because on the personal side, my brother is going to join me because he's never been to the States, and we've tried 10 years ago when he had his birthday, but then a snowstorm in Frankfurt kind of canceled his trip. And so now we're trying again. There's no snow, at least no prediction on snow tomorrow because he's flying over tomorrow. So 10 years later, we're trying it again, and will be nice showing him a little bit of the US. And we do Texas, and then at the end we do Boston.
Awesome.
It's gonna be good. Yeah. But other than that, I think, Brian, I would have loved to see you in Denver. I hope we'll get to see each other the next time when I'm there.
Yeah, I have to still find a way to get to Austria. I mean, I know I could take a plane, that I know, but like an excuse. Yeah. But it always gets tough with the one kid. So I'm glad you had a fantastic time at KubeCon. Glad to hear you got to hook up with Kelsey and pick his brain a bit. He's always got plenty of great ideas. Any final thoughts on that, on the future of Kubernetes? Were there any, I know this is a long shot, right? Any rumblings of something, the next big thing, or any hints, or is it just all focused? Like, obviously people wouldn't be touting it, but are there any undercurrents of like?
No, I think what it is Kubernetes is the standard, right? I mean, there's no way around Kubernetes, at least not for the foreseeable future, and that's why. And we have a very strong ecosystem And now it's really, I think, time for organizations to leverage that platform, even though many are still in the starting phase and it's very complex. And so a lot of people that I talked to, they were just like entering the field of Kubernetes and they are asking all the basic questions, which is fair to ask, but it also still means that we still need to educate. We need to make the tools better. And yeah, I mean, this maybe from a Dynatrace perspective, I like that because we announced our new Kubernetes observability experience where with the new app that we announced and that will GA soon, it's about an opinionated view on observability on Kubernetes, where we bubble up the right data to reduce that noise and complexity that the Kubernetes cluster generates and really give you the data that you need to get your job done. So, but I don't know. I think Kubernetes will stay there for a while and don't see it go away.
Yeah, it seems like it's entered the refinement phase, right? It's because there's been so many different angles people are taking towards it and so many bespoke versions of it. It really feels like it's reached the point of its maturity cycle where there has to be some refinement. There has to be some, not hard standardizations, but some areas where, okay, if you need this variety, here's the recommended set of variations instead of just 1,000,001 of them, because that then becomes really hard for the community to stay on top of. You move from one job to another, and it's another billion different variations. So I think definitely seems to be in that pseudo standardization. Obviously, one of the benefits of Kubernetes is the openness of it. You can cater to what you need, but when you have too many choices, there's almost some paralysis or how do you make the right choice? So hopefully we start seeing some of that, that maturity coming into it and just the growth into a much easier platform to get into. From that point of view. Awesome.
Cool.
All right, Andy, it was a pleasure having you as a guest. I forgot to play the lead today. See, I came up with some questions. They weren't all dumb questions like I do in the normal episodes. And well, safe travels to you. Say hi. Tell your brother that I said hi. Tell your brother that our entire audience says hi.
Will do.
And that we wish him well and hope he enjoys his time in the United States. And hope you get back home soon. Because we don't want you here now. Because no, we love you here.
By the time when this airs, I should be back home. That's kind of my plan. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Maybe we can have you on again in the future if you happen as a guest. That is. Yeah. Do some more stuff. And again, thanks to all of our listeners. Any last thoughts? Any shout outs? No. Okay. You're good.
Just
we won't belabor it.
No. Oh, actually, one shout out. Thank you to the local Dynatrace team here in Chicago who invited me and some other folks who were here for KubeCon to the Diwali party that they had last night. That was really nice. Thank you so much. It was fun.
Awesome. All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye-bye.